Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, hola, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Ken at 10, at number 10. Why am I here? I hear there's a party going on. Have you had enough of it though? I have. Honestly, I'm over it. The whole Rishi, so what, they had a party. I know it's bad, I know they shouldn't have done it, but then we'll do something that we shouldn't have done when it comes to little things like that. There are so many more important things going on in the world. You know, there are people out there right now in the UK in 2022 that can't eat or heat. And, you know, there are food banks are overran. It's awful. It really is really shocking. And the poverty divide in the UK is worse than it's ever been. And I find that really shocking, considering where we are, that people are literally choosing between heating and eating. That is just so shocking. I've got a new term for you today. If you haven't been here before, I should say this is Ken at 10. We're James Alexander, estate agents, and we broadcast daily live from our offices in southwest London, Norbury, SW16, and we're situated between Streatham and Croydon, with Streatham to the north and Croydon to the south. And there's a new property reference term that estate agents are using, which I'll come to at the end of the show, which is a bit of fun. I think you might find interesting. Now, on to the topic of the day. Everybody's asking what impact the war will have on property prices in the UK. And I think the answer is a number of different things. I'm working on research for it at the moment. I'm going to put a more detailed version of this into the podcast this week. But my first conclusions are the obvious ones. Number one, that central London, particularly Mayfair and the likes, will be hit quite hard because the Russian buyers were fairly prolific in a very large part of the market, together with the Chinese. So with the Russian buyers out of the picture, we can expect some impact on that high-level, multi-million-pound central London market for sure. Second thing is that for the rest of us, the market still goes on a pace, and it almost seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? On the one hand, the market's going up. On the other hand, hang on a minute, why is the market going up? We've got rampant inflation, interest rates are going up, people are struggling, and the truth is that that societal divide is massive. So there are plenty of people out there that can still afford to buy and are exercising that option to do so, because natural greed kicks in when property prices are rising. In other words, somebody hears a rumor, property prices are about to rise, somebody else jumps in. There's an old adage that when your cab driver's telling you to do something like buy a house, it's probably a bad time to do it. But I think personally that the market's got some mileage in it yet here in southwest London. I think it does. It's a macro environment, does depend on where you are. It used to be the case that we would say you drop a stone in central London and those ripples will come out. And therefore, if central London isn't moving, then the rest of the country doesn't move. I don't think that's quite true, because I think the inner London market particularly is a particularly small market, and it doesn't really impact on the rest of us, because realistically, someone buying or selling a multi-million-pound house in Mayfair is not coming to Streatham or Norbury to buy or sell, regardless of how much they achieve for that particular property. Similarly, the buyer coming in is not likely to come out to any other area either. They're probably not even living in the UK. So that market, if we shelve that to one side and forget the stone thing, in fact, if we're talking about the stone thing, well, you might as well drop a stone in the Atlantic and the waves are coming in, because actually property prices coastally, especially on the south coast, have been massive and far ahead of London. And that's why I think London's got some catching up to do, because here we are. While the pandemic was hit, we've seen a small property price rises in and around southwest London, but you've seen much bigger rises elsewhere, particularly in holiday type destinations, where the ratio for the average person, for instance, in Devon, the average salary to house price ratio is 50. That's crazy, isn't it? So local people have got absolutely no chance of getting on. No wonder there are some houses now getting graffitied and people annoyed at holiday homes in the area because the local people can't afford a home. So, yeah, real societal divide there. And that has got some way to go, I think, as well. I think we might see some more anger spilling out onto the streets later in the year. I hope I'm wrong about that, but I do think that's quite possible the way we're going right now. Now, onto house prices. What will it mean? What will happen? Well, I think two things. We know interest rates have gone up. We know inflation is still going up. The only weapon, realistically, that the government and the Bank of England particularly have to control inflation is interest rates. And they've got this delicate thing of not raising interest rates so high that businesses fail on the one hand, but raising them high enough to dampen consumer spending so that we don't end up in this spiral of prices go up and therefore salaries go up, and therefore prices go up and therefore salaries go up. And this is the inflation spiral that they're all afraid of, and therefore they raise interest rates to try and control that and dampen that spending and bring it up to a kind of equilibrium. I think the other side of this is that we're still although inflation is going up massively, we're still in the middle of a big recession. There's still lots and lots of poverty out there and lots of people struggling as well. So there's a real fine balance there. And if they push the interest rates too far, they could push over the edge. And that's why I think the rate rises that we'll see will not be massive. They'll be small. And in relative terms, they are very small. If you go back to the early 90s when we had interest rate rises coming through, they were meteoric, they were massive, and it was really scary. Even now, though, a small percentage rise can make a massive difference to your monthly mortgage payments because we all have such big mortgages relatively. So from that point of view, what's going to happen? We're going to expect more interest rate increases throughout the year. Lots of people are flocking to try and fix their rates now. If you've been watching the Property Buyer and Sellers podcast that we produce weekly, you'll know that we've been telling you to fix from 6 months ago. But even now, it's not too late. You should still be looking to fix. This is not financial advice, but if you are thinking about staying put for a number of years, it could be a good time to look at a fix, especially now, because I noticed today that the 5-year fixes are as cheap as the 2-year fixes, or even cheaper indeed in some cases. So it could well be worth you looking at that to try and lock down and lower those expenses, because I know a lot of people are very much on that breadline now, really, and it's quite serious. Aside from that, the new term that I discovered was the term for when you get a load of offers in, and this is very common in a very busy market. We get a load of offers in from different people, and then you get one offer which is substantially different from the others. For instance, you've got a property on the market at 300,000 or offers over 300, as we often do, and we get an offer of 305, 290, 310, and then we get an offer of 400. Well, there's a new term for that, and it's called a unicorn offer. I quite like that. You know, like you get unicorn tech companies that are multi-billion pound concerns. Well, the same now applies to property. We get unicorn offers, and I do think that's quite a fun term. So look out for the unicorn offers, and that's a new term for you. Put that one in the bank. Apart from that, people are moving to boats, believe it or not. A lot of people are moving on to boats. It does make some financial sense. No doubt it's a lot cheaper to run a boat than it is a house. And there are some beautiful places along the Thames, and you can always move if you don't like your neighbours, which is also an advantage. Apart from that, as far as the market's concerned, lots of valuations coming through. If you're thinking of selling this year, the impact of the Ukraine war in the wider sense, in my view, is that at some point, it's going to put the brakes on things. Why? Well, there are a number of reasons. Number one, affordability. What's going to happen is that lenders are going to be looking much more closely at your finances and probably reining back the amount that they'll loan to you. Why? Because your fuel bills have just doubled. That's not lost on them. The cost of other things has also gone up, and that's not lost on them. So they're going to be looking for affordability. And if your mortgage payments are higher and your affordability is less because of all the other things you've now got to pay for, such as fuel bills, etc., and food, then they're going to start reining in the amount that they'll lend to you. And that's a real issue. So I do think that in the end, the market is driven by banks being able to lend people money, because if the first-time buyers can't get onto the ladder by getting those initial mortgages, then the rest of the chain can't be released up. So the first-time buyer buys the small flat so that the small flat owner can get into the family home, and so on. And also, more importantly, I've said this before, but I think it's really relevant. If you're looking for a family home to buy, if you're just selling and you want to cash in, I don't think there's any particular urgency. But I think if you're looking for a family home to buy, there is no better time than the spring. And actually, the best time is just after the holidays. So if you're thinking of doing it this year, in my view, this is the best time you could possibly do it. So if you're thinking about getting a valuation right now, do give us a call. We're here for you. If you just want some general advice, I know a lot of you, we've had calls from all over the country of this. Thank you very much for all of those of you who watch from all over the place. And we're always happy to help with your queries. We'll be doing the Property Buyer and Sellers podcast early this week. And this week, it will all be about the effects of the Ukraine war on property prices throughout the UK. And looking forward to doing that one for you. Apart from that, busy day today here in the office. Just a couple of us in with the Easter holidays and kiddies home from school from all over the place. So it's a different week this week. Never quite as busy as people expect in our experience, but we've still got offers flying in, still got lots of sales to progress, and lots of things to get on with. So I hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks very much for watching. Look after yourselves, and if you can, your friends and family. Ciao.